Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going way back, back about 200 million years or so.
We are indeed. We're diving into the late Triassic to look at a dinosaur called Blikanasaurus.
And our main source material here is really the scientific literature, right? The original discovery papers, later research trying to figure this animal out.
Exactly. And our sort of mission today is to see what we can actually piece together about Blikanasaurus from, well, frankly, not a lot of fossil evidence.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part. It really makes you wonder, how much can you learn from just a few bits of bone?
It's a constant question in paleontology.
Okay, let's jump in. The name first, Blikanasaurus, and it has a nice ring to it. What's the story there?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, actually. Blikanasaurus is Greek, basically means lizard from Blikana.
Ah, Blikana Mountain.
Precisely. That's in the Eastern Cape, South Africa, where they first found it. And the species name, Cromptoni, that's a nod to the paleontologist A.W. Fuzz Crompton.
Oh, right, for his work on the Elliott Formation fossils.
Exactly. He did a lot of important work there. So the name itself tells you where it's from and honors a key researcher.
Cool. So geography and people tied up in the name. Now, these discoveries, I'm guessing they didn't just find a whole skeleton lying there.
No, definitely not. Far from it. The first find was back around 1965.
Okay.
And what they found was just part of a hind limb. So the lower leg bones, tibia, fibula, what we call the epipodium, and the foot, the pes.
Just leg and foot bones.
Yep. Found right at the base of Blikana Mountain. And significantly, it was in the lower Elliott Formation, the LEF.
And that Elliott Formation, that's key because it's late Triassic South Africa, right? A hotbed for early dinosaurs.
Absolutely crucial. It's like a snapshot of early dinosaur evolution, especially the ancestors of the big sauropods.
So for a long time, was that partial leg all we had? Just that one find?
For quite a while, yes, decades, really. Then, much later, in the early 2000s, another piece turned up.
Oh, okay. What was that?
A single right metatarsal. You know, one of the long foot bones.
Another foot bone.
Yeah, but this time it was found quite a distance away on a farm called Damplatz near Ladybrand. Still in the lower Elliott Formation deposits, though.
Interesting. So two separate finds, both hind limb bits, different locations.
Exactly. And there's maybe a hint of a third piece.
Go on.
Well, more recently, an ilium that's a big hip bone was discovered. There's some thought it might belong to Blikanasaurus.
Might. So not confirmed yet.
No, it's still tentative. Needs more study to be sure.
Yeah.
It just shows how painstaking this work is, connecting these isolated fragments.
It really does highlights how patchy the fossil record can be. You keep mentioning the Elliott Formation. Why is that layer so important for understanding dinosaurs like this?
Well, think about the timing late Triassic. This is when dinosaurs were really starting to diversify. The Elliott Formation catches this moment.
Right.
It preserves remains of many early forms, including, crucially, the ones leading towards those giant sauropods everyone knows. So studying fossils from there gives us this amazing window into those early evolutionary steps.
The birthplace of giants, you called it earlier. I like that.
It kind of was, yeah.
Okay, so we have these limited remains, mainly hind limb stuff. What can we actually, figure out about what Blikanasaurus looked like or how it moved?
Well, even from just those bits, you can infer some things. The bones themselves are described as heavily built.
Heavily built.
Yeah, which leads paleontologists to think Blikanasaurus was probably, thickly set and robust, a chunky animal.
Just not exactly built for speed.
Probably not, no. And this robustness, this heavy build, it leads to a really interesting hypothesis about how it moved.
Which is?
That Blikanasaurus was likely an obligate quadruped.
Meaning it had to walk on all fours all the time.
That's the idea. Which is pretty significant when you think about its relatives.
It is, yeah, because lots of those early sauropodomorphs, the ancestors or cousins of sauropods, they were often two-legged, weren't they? Or could switch.
Exactly. Many basal sauropodomorphs were bipedal or facultative bipeds walking on 2 or 4 legs as needed. So suggesting Blikanasaurus was already committed to 4 legs is a big deal. These sturdy leg bones. They might actually show us one of the early steps towards that classic 4-on-the-floor posture of the later massive sauropods.
Huh. Like seeing the early design for a tank tread when everyone else is still on bicycle wheels.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. These few bones hint at a major lifestyle shift.
Okay, so that leads us to its place in the family tree. You mentioned someone proposed a whole family just for it, Blikanasauridae. What happened with that?
Ah, yes. Galton and Van Heerden back in '85. They did propose the family Blikanasauridae, but it hasn't really caught on widely in the scientific community.
Why not?
Mainly because, well, Blikanasaurus is still the only definite member we know of. To really establish a family, you usually need more than one example.
Hmm.
More species that clearly share unique traits defining that group.
Right, makes sense. Hard to define a family based on just one member. So if it's not in its own family, where do scientists generally place it now? Within the bigger sauropodomorph picture.
Current thinking, based on cladistic analyses, those family tree diagrams scientists build, puts Blikanasaurus within Sauropoda proper.
So a true sauropod, just an early one.
Seems like it, yeah. Relatively early, or basal within that group,
Yeah.
often placed near other early sauropods like Lissamsaurus and Gondwanasaurus.
Okay. And you see other names on those charts too, like Mosaurus ordonyx, Melanosauridae. How do they fit in relation to Blikanasaurus?
Good question. Those are all part of the broader story. Mosaurus, Ordonyx, Cephalopodosaurus, they're generally seen as more basal sauropodomorphs, sort of earlier branches off the main line leading to sauropods.
Okay, further out in the tree.
Yeah. Then you have groups like Melanosauridae, think Camelotia, Melanosaurus, and Lessamsauridae, which includes things like Antitonatrus and Gentia, Lessamsaurus. These represent different stages or branches in that transition towards the big quadrupeds.
That's-
Blikanasaurus seems to sit a bit closer to the base of Sauropoda itself, maybe more directly on the path towards later giants than some of those other groups. Gravasauria is a slightly larger grouping encompassing some of these early sauropods, but, you know, these relationships are always being debated and updated as we find more fossils.
It really sounds like Blikanasaurus is this crucial but still kind of shadowy figure in that big evolutionary transition.
Shadowy is a good word. Enigmatic. And that brings us right to the challenges, doesn't it?
Yeah, the biggest one being we just don't have much of it.
Exactly. An extremely incomplete fossil record. A few leg and foot bones, possibly a hip bone. That's it. It's like trying to understand, I don't know, a whole car engine from just a spark plug and a couple of bolts.
Or appreciate a symphony from hearing 3 notes.
Perfect analogy. Because of that, we know very little for sure about its overall size. We can guess, but it's just a guess. Its diet, its lifestyle. Mostly speculation.
So enigmatic taxon is a pretty fair description then.
Absolutely. We make the best inferences we can from the bones we have, comparing them to relatives, but a huge amount remains unknown. It really makes you think about how much of our picture of the past is built on these kinds of educated deductions from fragments.
It does. Puts it all in perspective.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up what we have learned in this deep dive. What are the key takeaways on Blikanasaurus?
Well, we know it was a sauropodomorph dinosaur from the late Triassic of South Africa, known mainly from these few but interesting hind limb fossils.
Right.
These bones suggest it was robustly built, possibly even an obligate quadruped.
A potential early adopter of the four-legged stance.
Potentially, yeah. Playing a role in that early phase of sauropod evolution, moving towards gigantism and quadrupedalism. Its exact position is still debated, but it sits somewhere near the base of the sauropoda group.
And even though the evidence is so fragmented, those fragments are still valuable, aren't they? They give us these little clues about life's history.
Incredibly valuable. They show that even incomplete fossils can spark big questions and point towards major evolutionary events. Every piece adds something to the puzzle.
It really makes you wonder, though, if we can deduce all this, tentatively, from so little, what else is out there? What other incredible creatures from that time might we only have a single bone from, or maybe nothing at all yet?
Exactly. And what happens if someone does find a more complete Blikanasaurus? It could completely change our understanding overnight.
It's a tantalizing thought. What discoveries are still waiting out there? Definitely food for thought. Thanks for exploring that enigmatic dinosaur with me.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating glimpse into the deep past.